the Electric Vehicle Availability Standard that drives Canada towards all new light-duty vehicle sales in Canada to be electric or plug-in hybrid by 2035.
Electric vehicles, or EVs, are supposed to be good for the environment and save money. What's not to love? Justin Trudeau wants us all driving in an EV as soon as possible, with his government recently announcing we'll all have to by 2035. In this video, we'll take a look at the EV mandate and why it's horrible news for Canada. EVs first came on the Canadian market over 2 decades ago, but they've taken a long time to catch on and become popular. In fact, they're still not really popular at all. According to Auto Trader magazine, just 1 in 10 Canadians owns an EV, and searches for EVs account for less than 3% of traffic on the marketplace's website. But Justin Trudeau's Liberal government plans to change that, requiring automakers to ensure that 1 in 5 vehicles they put on the market in Canada are EVs by 2026. This rises to 34% in 2028 and 43% by 2029. That number keeps rising until it hits 60% of all new vehicles sold by 2030 to be EVs and 100% by 2035. While it may seem like a great idea on the surface, the ugly truth about the Liberal government forcing through EVs is far different and makes Canada's economic situation even worse than it already is. There are 3 main reasons that mandating EVs is a terrible idea. They're extremely expensive to make and cost much more than gas-powered vehicles. They're environmentally harmful to make, and forcing them on an entire country is an anti-free market dictatorial decision that sounds more like last century's Soviet Union than modern-day Canada. Here's why the EV mandate from the Trudeau government is even more of a nightmare than many Canadians realize. Let's get started. First, let's look at cost. EVs cost much more than gas-powered vehicles to make, and therefore they cost much more to buy. No amount of government subsidies and rebates have shifted that reality. Although it's true that yearly costs to run an EV are less, the sticker prices are still much higher to get a hybrid or full EV. Take a new 2024 Toyota Prius Prime plug-in hybrid EV, available from around 42,000 Canadian dollars, compared to the gas-powered 2024 Toyota Corolla LCVT from $26,000. That's a sizable sticker difference. It's true that gas-powered vehicles cost more to operate than EVs and hybrids. Anybody who's been to a gas station in the past year can tell you that. Never mind that anti-energy policies from the likes of Joe Biden and Justin Trudeau are part of why gas is so expensive right now. Never mind that both leaders have made explicit statements about wanting everyone to drive EVs, and that this has coincided with anti-fossil fuel policies. When you actually look at the reality of the sticker price of EVs along with their short battery life before the vehicle becomes undrivable and needs to be replaced, you run into a very different scenario, especially if the cost of electricity keeps going up. While advocates of the policy argue that embracing EVs will pave the way for a greener future, a closer look shows that this is pure malarkey. In fact, forcing a shift to electric vehicles places a significant financial burden on consumers. It also hurts automakers who have made their voices heard, asking Trudeau and his ilk to be realistic. The mandated switch to EVs threatens traditional automakers, potentially resulting in job losses and economic instability that will make things even worse. The upfront costs of EVs are considerably higher, as we've seen. You add this to the shorter battery lifespan, individuals will find themselves making more frequent and expensive vehicle purchases. This reality could lead to financial stress for Canadian households, which are already strained under record debt and skyrocketing costs. Now we come to the environmental damage of EVs. Despite all the blabbering green propaganda, these vehicles are terrible for the environment. First of all, EV battery systems don't just grow out of the ground like magical beanstalks. The extraction and processing of materials for EV batteries such as lithium, cobalt, and nickel is very hard on the environment, and the mining process takes a long time and uses a massive amount of energy, causing a huge carbon footprint. Like it or not, EV battery production hurts the environment, killing off biodiversity, polluting the air, and decreasing freshwater supply. The mining is done in countries with few environmental regulations, where the raw materials can be extracted with little rules and then shipped in fossil fuel burning massive shipping containers to production centers and then to points of sale. When the EV battery dies and has to be replaced after an average of 12 years, good luck. EV battery recycling methods are still in their early stages, and they are not specifically designed to be recycled, leading to worse environmental developmental stages in the waste process. Expected lifespan on the EV tires is only between 30,000 to 40,000 miles due to their heavier weight and torque. This means that consumers will be buying tires more often and thus contributing to increased emissions. Then we get to the electricity used to charge EVs. Electricity isn't magic. The electricity to power EVs often comes from fossil fuels itself or large hydroelectric dams that impact forests and trees. Does any of this sound environmentally friendly to anyone? Then you get to how anti-free market and Soviet style it is to force a new product on a population and tell people what they can buy and sell. Just as the Trudeau government pushed through a vaccine that wasn't even sufficiently tested and prevented Canadians from travel and their rights, they want to now push an anti-science fake green initiative on the country in order to advance some kind of delusional green socialism on the country. And what about all the charging stations we'll need? Depending on how much people charge at home, Canada is going to need at least 450,000 public charging stations by 2035 to handle EVs on the road. Right now, there are around 25,000. We're not even close. Who's going to build these charging stations exactly? How much will it cost? The average cost to build a public charging port varies widely. The upgrade to the electrical grid to supply this level of power costs $12,000 to $15,000. To supply a parking lot with enough access to the grid to install the port, and installing a dedicated 480-volt circuit could cost tens of thousands of dollars each. As Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe has said, this would cost a stunningly wasteful $18 billion to do by 2035. Even if we desperately wanted to do it, it still isn't going to happen by 2035. It'll cost $18 billion more and isn't possible, Moe correctly notes. This mandate will completely change the economy and will require a massive government-forced focus on building charging stations all over the place, especially in rural areas. How can you travel long distance in an EV if it gives out after 250 miles and you can't find a charging station on your route? However, if the current sustainability push continues and anti-family farming measures under the guise of stopping greenhouse gas, perhaps the Liberals hope most people in the country will leave for the crowded, dangerous cities by then. This is where these EV measures take on an even darker undertone and appear at least partly designed to limit transportation freedom and mobility in the future, consolidating citizens into urban grids of public transport or EVs without the option to drive long distances without special permission. We've already seen Trudeau say during the pandemic that those who didn't obey him should be separated from others in society.
You'll have to stay home. You'll have to Skype that big family dinner. And the Easter egg hunt, well, it'll have to happen around the house.
He also blocked Canadian passports of citizens who hadn't received the vaccine from leaving the country. This isn't a wild conspiracy theory. It is things that have already happened. Who's to say we won't have a future in which refusing to drive an EV becomes illegal and you have to apply to drive long distances? We all know who else did their best to limit where citizens were allowed to go and put up checkpoints. Nazi Germany, Soviet Russia, and current dictatorships like North Korea come to mind. When citizens are told what they have to buy and where they can go, you have a very, very rapid slide into potentially nightmarish situations that none of us even want to imagine. Pushing all this through under the guise of helping the environment is smart and cynical because most Canadians don't have the time to do deep research on the agenda behind these kinds of policies and what it could really mean. Are we just being too concerned? Are EVs going to keep improving and be great for the environment soon? Will a new source of electricity be found that makes it as green as a Granny Smith apple? Anything is possible, and maybe unicorns who fart rainbows will also come out to frolic in downtown Toronto tomorrow. But chances are that instead of any miraculous changes in EV production or electricity and charging stations, we're going to see more big government bullying and green socialism from Canada's Liberals. This is bad for the economy, and it's bad for Canadians. At this time, people need cheaper food prices, affordable homes, sound economic policy, and hope for the future. But instead of common sense and real dedication, the Trudeau Liberal government is ramming these Soviet-style green policies down our throats and moving ahead with potentially dangerous anti-freedom initiatives that could lead to some very dark future scenarios. Tell us what you think. Should Canadians have the right to drive a vehicle of their own choosing? Or is it time to embrace this plan to fill every car dealership with EVs and start packing parking lots with charging stations and EV-only parking spots? If you like this video and want to learn more about what's really going on in Canada, check out this video here. And if this video and its